In all of these videos that we talk about how communication is key to having a really good relationship long term. And that if you aren't willing to be brave in that first moment to have the
Mm.
conversation with your partner, then resentment and anger and fear and stress is going to. Last month, we talked about fear and stress and how that popped up when our twins got into their dream colleges and the costs that came along with it. So make sure to go back, check out those videos about college costs, and like and subscribe. Hi, I'm Kate,
And I'm Joe,
and this is Dream with Us,
as we plan for our next chapter in life.
here to motivate, inspire, and communicate with you. What if your biggest money stress didn't come from your bank account, but from your childhood?
We're not just talking about money tonight, we're talking about the stories behind it. Ramit Sethi's book, Money for Couples, has an exercise, Two Money Memories.
Most couples aren't fighting over money. They're fighting over identity and safety and worth.
When you ask your partner, what was money like when you were growing up? You're not just talking about dollars and cents, you're talking about dreams.
So, in this book, Money for Couples by Ramit Sethi, he starts the book off strong with how to create that new script of conversation surrounding money with your partner. And it really got me to thinking right away about how I speak in terms of money with my partner and my background that made it really difficult for me to understand how to have a constructive, easy conversation when it comes to money. Um, and the men were very outnumbered in my house. I grew up with, you know, there was three girls, and my mom and then my grandmother also lived with us, and my other grandmother and my papa lived across the street from us, and so my dad was very outnumbered, and everything was very separate. And so when he discussed in the book Invisible Scripts about money, it really got me to thinking about what that looks like, and that I hold many invisible scripts about money connected also to being a female. And there is this one section that he talks about keep a little money set aside just in case. And in my household, there was a term always have mad money on you. Like you should always have at least $20 on you at all times, just in case you got mad and you had to leave a date or you had to leave a situation. My grandmother had gotten divorced in the 60s. So she very much advocated making sure you had your own money to be able to protect yourself and to be able to survive. So this also led to a lot of um, conversations that didn't happen in a partnership. And so that was my story growing up. And so, in my mind, when it came to the boys going to college, it was more in terms of um, it was my responsibility as a mom to pay for their education because that's what my mom did and that's what my grandmother did. And that was what I was expected to do. So I didn't think that I had to have a conversation with Joe about the cost of college because I thought it was my job to do.
So, Ramit Sethi talks about invisible scripts in his book. And these scripts are kind of the things that we rerun through our mind surrounding money, the things we tell ourselves. Oftentimes, these things we told ourselves came up from our upbringing and how we learned about talking about or not talking about money growing up. And so, Kate and I um, looked at this chapter, and Sethi has a number of kind of common scripts that people tell themselves, things that people believe around money. And so, Kate and I are going to talk about how we answered and addressed and had a conversation around some of these ideas. So, what was one of the things that you identified out of the scripts that?
I think he had several that were surrounding around like female money, like how mom wages are. You might as well stop working since all your income is going to childcare. Uh, this was a big one for me when I found out I was pregnant with the twins, um, and to give up all of career aspirations because it was more important to stay home and raise the kids, um, not thinking of my future self and recognizing like I wasn't investing in my career or the upward mobility that I could have had, or even into Social Security. So, this was as a young mom, I believe that this was the best thing that I could do. And so I ended up choosing those two financial scripts. Were there ones in this that you felt connected with you and your invisible scripts?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the visible scripts that Sethi highlights here in the chapter is debt is a fact of life, and you'll always have to have debt in order to survive. When I grew up and started a life of my own, I had car loans, I had credit card debt, and it took me many years to overcome that belief system that you had to have debt, that debt was a fact of life, and that since you will never have a lot of money, you're going to always have debt somewhere.
Were there any others that you also felt were um, that brought up some major ideas of money and debt or money and investing?
Yeah, I think the idea that investing is for rich people.
Hmm.
And again, we grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money. It was oftentimes paycheck to paycheck. My parents both worked hard, but there wasn't a lot of extra money. And so even saving, let alone investing, was a challenge for them.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I growing up with uh, both grandparents in not only in my household, but like my grandmother and my grandpa lived across the street. There was also a tie to like depression era and that fear of being really poor. So in my household there was a lot of conversations about saving and making good choices with your money, and making sure that you were always smart when it came to money, like not to spend your money on frivolous things. You could probably make it yourself if you had to.
Yeah, and my family, as I mentioned, we didn't have a lot of extra money, so we occasionally had vacations growing up, but nothing extravagant, and never took a plane. It was always driving to wherever we went to. Kate and I both are fortunate because we came into our relationship wanting to um, communicate better about money, communicate better with our children about money, to raise them with an awareness about saving and investing, not having debt, not having credit cards, that kind of thing. Um,
But also in what Ramit Sethi says about pursuing your rich life. So making sure that when you do spend your money, you're spending it on the things that you really appreciate and love. And so his goal is to also encourage people to save for those rich moments,
mhm.
to enjoy life rather than just saving all the time. And I think with your
Mm.
family, you had those moments of really dreaming big and like pursuing those dreams. Whereas I think for me and my family, it was more, we made sure we stayed safe
Mhm.
in not pursuing big dreams.
Yeah, well, I think in my family, it was a working class ethic to strive to do better and um, to pursue your goals and your dreams. But that was more tied to work and earning a living, and I think what we're talking about and what Sethi promotes in his book is about building those big dreams, taking the steps to confront your beliefs about money so that you can face them head on, but also allow yourself to plan, to dream big, to pursue the things that really matter to you, rather than coming at them from a place of scarcity or saving for a rainy day when that's important. But if you are saving to the exclusion of experiencing life and sharing those experiences one another, then that's actually kind of a deficit mindset almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like for me, because I grew up in this very feminine household, the belief system was also not in um, learning how to communicate with your partner to be able to live your best life. That your role as a wife or as a mother was to make sure that they live their best life.
These conversations are important because it's not just about now, it is about 5 years from now, 10 years from
In all of these videos that we talk about how communication is key to having a really good relationship long term. And that if you aren't willing to be brave in that first moment to
now.
have the conversation with your partner, then resentment and anger and fear and stress is going to follow years down the road. So I take these moments of fear of like, I need to have a conversation, a scary conversation with him about money, always from the mindset that I love him now and I want to love him more tomorrow and the next day. Because
Mm.
if I can look to my future self, that fear dissipates in my own being. If I held on to saying I'm not going to talk to him about money, then yes, I will have resentment and anger that's going to pop up years later.
And so it takes courage and it takes the willingness to be able to sit down and say, you know what, let's have this conversation. Let's talk about where some of this stuff may be coming from if you're running into resentment or even challenges communicating about money. And so, looking at the invisible scripts that you may have grown up with or created yourself, even being in previous relationships, perhaps, um, and reevaluating those and talking about them with each other.
Right. But the reality is that in a really strong partnership and relationship, you want to be able to not only belong with that person, you want to be able to feel like you have this transparent honesty that you can like navigate life through without judgment or criticism. And, me and Joe aren't perfect, but
Mm-mm.
we always address each other in this fashion where one, we know we love and respect each other. And if you can build on that, and I think these questions help you as a couple to build that trust with each other.
What's one limiting belief that you have about money that you're willing to let go of today?
Have you or your partner ever talked about your childhood money memories? Learn how to get brave, be courageous with your partner, have conversations with them with a sense of curiosity, respect, and love rather than criticism or doubt or fear. And if you lean into these conversations, your relationships will get stronger and better, and you will learn more about each other in a deeper way.
That's right. And so, until the next time, dream with us.
Dream with us. Talk to you soon.